Hello and welcome to IndiePod, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week we're bringing you 3 awesome indie game news stories before, of course, hopping in to News Cram, God Bless the Crowd, and ending off with your listener questions. But before we get into any of that, I would like to introduce myself, Vaughn, alongside my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average, Josh Boys. How you doing today, B. Josh Boy?
I'm doing well. I've had a lazy day, but it's nice. I get to talk about some games, whatever else we do. There's some weird ass questions today. I'm ready for it.
Okay, all right. I'm excited for it too. Here's the thing. Before we started recording, I'm that guy who waits till the last day to turn anything in. And for my college classes, we have what's called like signature assignments, which are like our one big assignment at the end of every semester. Luckily, one of my signature assignment was not that big. So I totally forgot about it until today, and it's due today. I wrote an over a 3-page paper in like less than an hour. I was like, just to make sure I got it done.
This guy, I'm so the opposite. It's so weird. Like I get these assignments and I'll it would be like the end of the course kind of a thing. And they're like, you have 3 months and at the end of the course, it should be done. And like, we're going to do it every week and like do certain parts. And I'll look at it and I'll be like, I'm gonna do that today. And then for the rest of the 3 months, I will just do nothing. And then
I wish I was like that. I wish I was a front load person. It's always something I've shot for, like especially when it comes to content creation. Like front loading is like, oh, okay, I will do I'll record 3 things before I actually air anything. That way I always have something. And then just inevitably I will eventually be like, I don't feel like doing it. And I got 2 on deck. So, and it just never goes well. Yeah, it's a huge pitfall for me. I'm such a piece of shit.
It's okay, because sometimes that bites me in the ass, because sometimes I do the whole project or whatever it is, and I'm like, I'm fucking done. And then like the next week they'll be like, and this is why you have to do it this way. And I'll be like, oh. I'll be like, can we not though?
You're like, but what? Here's the thing. Like, what? Let me pose you a question. What if we did it?
What if we didn't?
The old way.
Because I've gotten screwed over on that a couple of times, but most of the time it's
That'd be so funny, because you do it a second time, you're just like, fuck it, I guess I'll do it that way. And then like it would be, you have this indecisive professor that's just like, you know what, you're right, Josh, like the old way was adequate, it's fine. And you're like, I will kill you.
You're like, what?
I will throw you into a pit.
It's true. True.
It'd be great. It'd be awesome. But of course, this is about indie games. We got some housekeeping before we get into what we've been playing. Please check out the infamous Rabbit Oddventure. The developers of Oddventure developer interview going live this Wednesday. So, of course, that is one day after for patrons, 2 days before for plebes. And that is, I believe, April the 28th. Dude, I have such a problem with months. Like, I keep thinking it's May. It's throwing me off so much.
No, it's going to be May.
Yeah, I think it's also because I'm so excited to move into my house that I wish it was May 25th.
Like, can't it just be May already?
Yeah, because we'd already have the keys and everything, because we don't get the keys until like the end of May, so it's just like, let's do it.
Gonna be in your own house, gonna be so nice.
I know, I'm so excited, but at the same,
I can't
like in the same
wait to hear
token,
you
I'm
bitch
so
about
not
things.
excited.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can't wait.
Like, we got a new fridge today. I had to pull weeds. This is fucking garbage. And then like you can do that nice little rewind where you just like remember when you said you were excited for all of this.
Oh yeah.
Bad idea. It's a bad idea. You shouldn't have done it.
Gonna clip those two together.
It'll be super fun. So please check out the infamous Rabbit Oddventure developer interview, of course, going live Wednesday. And also check out our IndiePod store for our t-shirts and stickers. Soon to be more once I eventually pay somebody to make something. It'll be interesting.
Let's get them hoodies.
Happens,
Give me my
we're
hoodie.
gonna get hoodies. Guaranteed. We will get hoodies. And we will get hats. Those are the 2 things I want above everything, is hats and hoodies. So
I got a hat the other day because
Eventually.
I went outside. I was at like a pool thing, and I had.
You went outside?
I know, crazy, right? Can't you tell? Don't I look so nice and tan? No,
Dude, you always do. It's weird. You always look cute, and I'm like, "What's up, big boy?" Like, why you always look good? I don't understand.
Excuse me. I look so fucking weird in hats, dude. Next episode, I'll remember to bring my hat. Like, I have it, and I feel so weird. I'm like, do I drive a truck? Like, what is this? Like,
dude,
it's so strange.
I never wore hats. It took me like months of forcing. I never wear hats. I used to never wear hats, and it took me months of wearing them to finally get okay with the look of it.
Yeah, looking at it, like, just mentally, I look at myself, and I'm like, God, take that thing off. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. You're like the Groot thing where he's like, man, the second you think somebody's just got a weird head, it turns out they're just wearing a hat. And you're like, wait, what?
Dude, I hate it because it's mostly my ears. Because I have these ears where right at the top, they're like a little pointy, so they're like kind of elfy, and then they just stick out of the hat, and I'm like, ugh, what is this fucking elven shit? Like, stop that.
Yeah, that's why I like dad caps. Like, it doesn't even get close to my ear. It's kind of nice. Or, like, it barely touches my ear versus, like, I guess what would be, like, flat bill hats and stuff like that. For some reason, they're just like, we want it to touch the nape of your neck. And I'm like, what? Why? It's so fucking weird. Like, flat bill hats just bother me in general, though. They look fat. They're like skate shoes. Like, there's nothing I find less attractive than flat bill hats or skate shoes. On anybody. Just anybody. Immediate turn off, you know?
Whew.
Like, Big Josh boy, he's the cutest boy. But, like, he wears the fucking flat bill hat. I'd be like,
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'll wear 'em.
exactly.
See how it goes.
Plus, there is also this kind of phenomenon, and I have to ask you about it since you don't wear hats. Do you ever wear a hat for an extended period of time and then it hurts your hair? Like, that sounds weird, but it makes it, like, your hair feels sore. I guess. Technically, it would be your scalp or your follicles feel sore, but did that ever happen to you?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Fuck
I've
me.
never worn a hat that long.
Damn it.
The closest that I'll say is I used to wear beanies a lot when I was in high school, and like it'll hurt your forehead because they're like the elastic in it, but never like, oh, my hair hurts so much. Like, that's not a thing.
Beanies are also the weird thing because it's like then you get that weird like what is it? The imprint of an elastic waistband kind of a thing, but on your forehead.
But on your forehead,
you're just like, you're like, what's that all about? You look like you have railroad tracks on your forehead.
Been wearing pants on your head lately? Like, what are you doing, buddy?
You're like, sup, dude? You fucking that's a story for another day. Never mind. I'm not gonna
all right.
that one. Because of course, please check out our YouTube channel where you can watch these episodes in video fashion if my fucking export on Premiere Pros end up working.
Nope.
For some reason, it's just like, hey, new version of Premiere Pro, let's fuck with your entire existence, like your entire asshole. And I'm like, okay. Like, that's fun. I don't want to do that, but whatever. Please leave us reviews on any source in which you could do so. Specifically, iTunes would help us out a lot. If you write a written one, we will read it on the show. And lastly, thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons. There's so many of them. I just love them so much. And of course, this is at the $3 tier or higher that we talked to you about we mentioned a name on the show. But for any patrons below that, you're still amazing. The fact that anyone who gives us money at all is fantastic. So thank you so much to John, because apparently I was told not to say his full name because I don't know.
I mean, you can still say it.
John.
That's how I know him. It's not that you can't say it. It could be his full name. I don't know
Big
if
Josh
he wants
Boy
it.
forbid me for saying it.
No, we should ask him if he wants his full name. The reason why is because originally I didn't know it was even him because it's so weird to hear his last name. I just know him as John. It's just
I've for like 3 weeks I've been meaning to read this on the show. So John hits us up on Patreon because I was like, hey, who the fuck are you? Like, you want to join our Discord? Shit like that is be easy. Like, I'll give you the Patreon exclusive roles and the chats and stuff. It'll be fun. And he writes me a nice little thing like, hey, I subscribed to your YouTube channel a couple months ago. I really like the podcast. I got some extra scratch, so I thought I'd support a friend because he's actually Big Josh Boy's friend. Then he goes, P.S. Josh is into pup play and his dog is actually a young man.
John is he's a character.
Yeah, I was like, thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the dirty deeds. That was very nice of you. So thank you, John, for that. I'm glad I know a little bit more about Big Josh Boy. Thank you, Will C, Mixomatosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Renshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, Chris Penwell, always drinking tea, Josh Nichols, aka Active Josh, and lastly, Sam Fillion from Canada. Thank you all so much for being patrons. You're all so amazing. And let's talk about what we've been playing. Big Josh boy, you are back into Warhammer Vermintide 2 by Fatshark, which that is an awesome name. Please tell me more about Vermintide 2.
Yeah, so the reason why I jumped back in, Vermintide, honestly, was never a game that grabbed my attention as much as some of the other ones that you'll hear me constantly bring up. But in my friend group, we have a couple of people who really enjoyed it. It was always one where I was like, this is fun, but I'd rather play something like a Left 4 Dead, which is very similar to it in structure. It's more of a Left 4 Dead, but instead you're more doing melee combat. And it's a different theme, obviously. But what they did is they came out with a new update just as of, I think, last week, and it's called Chaos Wastes. And what's really cool about this is a free update. They added a roguelite mode into this game, and you know me, there's roguelites.
You just heard the R and you were like,
what?
Entered the chat.
Did you just say what I think you said? So they added a roguelite mode, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's cool because the way it used to work is you would have this story mode, or you would just quick play random levels, and you would play with 4 people, and you would go through a level, and you would just do whatever that level is. And the main thing that you did would be you're trying to find these tomes and these different collectibles that give you extra experience and extra it would rack up experience to get these higher powerful chests, more rare chests, excuse me, that would then give you loot that's kind of randomized. And so it was okay, but it was always the same. Whereas this one adds in this element of a roguelite where you always start off with kind of the same weapons. You start off with your weapon that you choose, but it bases it at the lowest level and takes away the perks. And then what happens is throughout each one of those levels that you're going to, you have these coins that you're picking up, which randomly there will be shrines that can upgrade your different weapons. It'll either give you a randomized weapon, or it'll upgrade whatever weapon you have based on the type of shrine. There's also ones that are just for boons specifically, so passive power-ups that you can go to. And so there's also random boss fights where you'll see a shrine that you'll activate, and so a monster will show up, and based on beating it, you then get to pick between 3 different passive abilities. And then that's just one level. Then you go back to the full map and you get to pick different levels. You get to pick a route, kind of like a Slay the Spire, if you will. You know how you have different things where you'll see, this one level has more enemies spawns, or it has more special types of enemies. But at the same time, it'll have extra healing items, or at the end of each one of those levels, you get specific ability perk. So this one, for completing the level, you might get 5% increased movement speed for the entire party, or the other one might be 10% ability cooldown reduction. So you kind of get to map out what's coming up next, and as a party with your 4 people get to vote on which ones you think I think this is the best way to go, blah blah blah, and then it'll pick kind of the highest vote and go that direction. So it's about 6 or so, 5 or 6 levels, I think, throughout the run. I wish you could save throughout, because it's one of those things where if you jump into this, you really have to be willing to commit an hour to 2 of your time, because you're doing this roguelite experience, where before I really enjoyed the game because you could be I'm just going to play one level, and it would be a 20-minute experience, and you could be good, I'm done, and it wouldn't matter. Now it's a little bit different because you have to kind of be willing to jump into it, which I think if they added a save mode, it would make it a lot better. Just for those moments where I don't have, that full amount of time. But I think what they did with this added a lot of what interests me more in this game, because it adds a little bit more of uniqueness in the levels, other than just, the spawning of monsters, but having that randomized weapons that you can get, unlocking different weapons, unlocking just different upgrades and abilities, so that your character can be completely different than you would have ever had him, or playing normally because you're stuck to that more limited structure. As far as difficulty, I've only played on, I think it was like the second difficulty up, so I have to try it out with more of them because I'm interested to see, like, usually the way it worked is you had gear that would create what is known as your hero power, and then based on your levels you also have certain talents that you get, which makes you stronger, but you were kind of locked into certain difficulties just based on that for the most part, because you'll do just less damage, you'll take more damage and whatnot based on your gear. But because they set everything back to like a basic level when you just start in those modes, I'm wondering if it doesn't matter as much because it'll just make it harder. I'd have to test it out. We have to play it more. I've only played it 2 runs so far, but I've really enjoyed it. And it's one of those things where now I'm more into actually going back into Vermintide, where before it was just like, all right, I'll do it because a couple of my friends wanted to play, and it was like, it's fun, but it wasn't like my jam. But this very much has made it something that interests me a lot more. So I would say give it a check, just because it's, you know, it's a free update. If you have Warhammer Vermintide 2, definitely pick it up and play it again. If you don't have Vermintide 2, I would say if you're into roguelikes and maybe you were kind of on the fence, I would definitely pick it up and check it out.
So I do have to ask, I know that in Vermintide 2, there are the different characters that'll offer like different play styles. Mm-hmm. Is it similar? Can you still choose different characters in the roguelike mode?
It's completely the same as far as like the base mechanics of the game go. You're still going to play with that character. You're still going to have the character ability that comes with them and their just generic talent perks that you've picked for your level. And like outside of that. But once you get into the roguelite experience, then you have a number of those boons or those passive things that you get and tack on to your character. So it'll be something like, I ended up getting a passive ability where potions no longer healed me. They would give temporary health, which is like just a health that'll slowly decline over time. But it was good because even though potions didn't really matter for me anymore, what happened was they also had the passive ability be you constantly gain health, like you're just regenning health, like it was like 5 health a second, which isn't like crazy. That's cool. It's not that crazy, but my character passively had, when I'm attacking people and I stagger them, I get temporary health. So I was constantly just getting temporary health while I was fighting and then regenning slowly enough where I like never really had to worry about anything.
Oh, okay. The roguelike mode sounds cool. I mean, I've been interested in Vermintide since you first brought it up. I thought it was really cool. But now it sounds even more interesting, even though I know I'd be fucking terrible at it. It does really suck, though, that it doesn't have the save feature similar to Slay the Spire, where you could save based on just whatever run you were doing, just kind of like in the middle of it, after you got out of one of the like little rungs or encounters. You could be like, hey, I'm going to come back later, and then load it up. That is really nice.
I guess it's a little bit tougher because you obviously have 4 people, right? So it's one of those things where maybe they didn't want to do that because probably matchmaking, if you're just playing with random people, is probably a lot tougher to be like, hey, everyone, it's time to pause. And they're like, what? I don't want to do that. Like, so I can understand kind of why they might not have put an effort into building that. But it would have been nice for if you have your own friend group that all of you can agree to be like, hey, let's put this on pause because we need to do whatever it is. And as far as
very similar to like how in Divinity you'll do a campaign with your friends, and it's like your friends can't play that campaign really without you. So
exactly.
Okay, all right, that checks out. I get what you mean. Have you tried it? Like, I know you like to play games with other people, but have you tried it playing on your own? Is it is it harder, easier?
No, you can do it. The AI is actually not that bad on the lower levels. I think they're not as great on the higher difficulties, but if you're playing like on a normal or what's called veteran mode, they're usually okay. Like they'll get by, and they're oftentimes nicer than your friends would be about like, we're going to help you and heal you, as opposed to your friends who would probably just be like, no, this is my potion. Like, I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. So you actually, like, you don't even kind of do it solo. You just get, like, NPC companions?
Yeah, you would get NPC companions. So it would be.
That's cool.
It's the same concept as like Left 4 Dead. If you played Left 4 Dead, you choose one character, but you're always that full party because it's kind of like a story of those characters going through that world and doing whatever it is they're doing.
Just proving how fucking dumb I am, I never noticed that. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Maybe I'm just not remembering it, but I do remember like possibly getting revived while playing on my own when I was a kid and didn't have like Xbox Live. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But no, that's really cool. I like that a lot. Okay, all right, all right. Are you? I mean, you being a big fan of the like these kinds of games, you're playing some like Vermintide and stuff like that. Do you think you will when Back for Blood comes out? Are you super excited about it?
Dude, I'm so excited for Back for Blood. I am I don't have my normal group of buddies. We have one who probably won't be into it, so I don't know if I'll have a full 4 party when it first comes out, but like I don't care. I am so ready to jump back into it because I went on a big Left 4 Dead 2 rush like a month ago or so, and I love it so much. It's such a good game.
All right. Okay. Speaking of games we've been playing, Big Josh, but you're also checking out In My Shadow by PlayBae. This is, you actually had a developer interview with PlayBae, right?
Yep, I did.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so this is, I also talked about this a little bit because I played the demo and talked about it. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but just to say that basically I did get it for free, which thank you for providing a copy to us. I believe it was through a PR agency. And this is a good game. I really think that people will enjoy this if they're fans of puzzle games or platformers, because it really combines the element of, if you're not the best puzzle person, you could probably get by being good at platforming. And if you're not the best platforming type of person, you can get by on just being strategic and understanding how the objects need to be. But like, I thought there were a lot of clever things they did in this game. I liked the story, even though the story isn't like, it's not anything that's like crazy done. You're not getting something that's like just something that you would see from like a Sony or, whatever. But the story is good. I did enjoy it. I liked the walk down memory lane, if you will, that happens with this. It's about a young woman who is kind of struggling with a troubled childhood and facing her past to kind of accept what had happened and take a little bit more ownership on some of the things that went wrong in her life with her family, as far as her being a little bit of a brat in certain cases. But you do that in the it's like play 3 levels and then you get a little tidbit of story each time, and it's these parts of the house where you're playing as a shadow of your former self, and you're grabbing these fragmented memories in each level, which kind of reminds the person of that. And I thought it was a really clever way to do that from just like a contextual, like story-wise way. But I think that the actual puzzle mechanics to it were really good. Like, using shadows is something that is very interesting, but I thought at first, I was like, well, this doesn't seem like it'll be that bad. But then you add in later levels the fact that you're using shadows on both walls, like you're using it from a corner, so you have to like reflect it in a way where it's like big on this area but small in a different area, and make sure that it all works for the full platform. Because the way each level plays out is you set up where objects are in the room and how they cast shadows, and based on that you only get that one like placement phase, and then you have to platform. And if you can't make it in that full, like the entire thing, you can't go back and then start moving things. You have to start back from the beginning and like start placing things again. So
that's weird.
Yeah, so it's like basically you can't move through half of the room and then be like, all right, now let me set the pieces up a little bit differently and then continue from where I was. It's like you have to get it right. So it becomes a little bit tougher on those moments where you're like, oh, okay, this object is going to put a shadow here and also over here. So I need to figure out like where this needs to be in the room to actually make it so that I can not only jump on the object, that I can avoid any traps, so that I can make sure, I can collect the memory fragments, because you have to collect all of them to actually complete a level. So there's a lot that goes into it. I think it was really cool. You later get into like these portals that they use. They do a really clever thing at the end that I don't want to spoil, but I really enjoyed the way you had to play like essentially 2 characters at once.
That's cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I definitely think people should take a look. It's honestly, it depends because, puzzle games, it's different for everyone, how long it'll take, but it's really like a 3-hour game. It's a pretty short game. So I think it's still very much worth the purchase and,
Oh, so you actually beat it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I think the like the puzzle platformer or just like puzzle games in general, I really like the heavy reliance on story for some of them.
Yep.
To be honest, I'm not like a big puzzle person because like I've said before, I'm kind of dumb. And I don't really like I have such a hard time with puzzles, but
some of them were
a couple
tough.
Years ago.
Some of the later ones were pretty tough though.
Yeah, like a year or two ago, I reviewed Felix the Reaper for Handsome Phantom, and one of the things I love the most about Felix the Reaper was the love story. Like I'm not a huge puzzle guy, so it was just like, okay, the puzzles are just kind of a side aspect, but I loved getting that story. Plus, I loved the just general character and ambiance of the game. But
Right.
I think it's really cool. I think that's a good way to incentivize people who don't actually like puzzles that much to play one of these games.
Right.
It's because it's like, if it's a good story, I'm really into it. It's kind of the reason that I don't want to play The Witness is because it's like I've never heard anybody say that it's got an amazing story or anything like that, or the world is amazing. They're like, the puzzles are fucking hard, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Then, like, Jonathan Blow's amazing, but I don't want to fucking just torture myself for hours, like trying to solve puzzles that I'm just not intellectually capable of solving. Like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. So
So when you just
I
watch
think
a
it's
playthrough.
cool. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, and just do that. Be like, it's whatever. I'll experience it in a different way. But yeah. So for me, what I've been playing this week, just playing some more TemTem, dude, by Crema.
Hell yeah.
It's super fun. I like me some TemTem. I am very much enjoying it. Granted, there are some things that I have noticed that are super annoying. So like last week, super annoying in the fact that it's just like, oh, this sucks for me, but it makes it somewhat more fun. It all just depends on what you want out of a monster tamer. So if you want
Gotcha.
this kind of like, I guess I would say that Pokemon is more of the power fantasy because it's not especially difficult unless you want to make it that way.
Right.
By doing the actually getting into the Pokemon community and making yourself like an actual kind of like a tournament team. Like you can make it incredibly difficult if you want to.
Yeah.
And you can get really nitty gritty. You could do a very similar thing with TemTem, but just the standard game is a bitch. And it's like, I've said this a couple times. I think I might have said this last week. I've only used potions like a couple times in Pokemon, and it was like at the Elite Four stage. But in TemTem, I use them literally every 10 minutes. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, Pokemon, I'd get to like the end of the fucking game, have millions of dollars or whatever that I just like beat the shit out of different tamers or whatever and then just stole their money, like different trainers. Like I would have so much money, and in TemTem, I cannot get past 20,000 because I just keep having to purchase like balms, which are basically potions, Balm Plus, and revives and Tem cards and stuff like that. It's just so difficult, and I really like it. And the thing I didn't notice, so going in the first dojo, each dojo, which is like the equivalent of gyms in TemTem, they each have their own theme, very similar to Pokemon, how it's like, okay, this is Misty's gym, so it's going to be all water. This is Brock, so it's going to be all rock, like stuff like that. The dojo itself has a theme. The trainers within it do not. And it's like, it kind of throws you off, but it also is just kind of like, in Pokemon, you always hear that the gyms are going to be a challenge, but I almost never had a challenge with the gyms.
Right.
In TemTem, when I get into a dojo, I get my ass beat. Like, it's like they are a real challenge, because what happens is, you're like, okay, this one seems to have like a water theme. What I will do is I will try to build my team to where it's good against like what would be water TemTem, or those that kind of like little rock, paper, scissors, so that they have good type advantages against that type. And then you get into one of these battles, and it's super fun because they're all basically double battles. but that also means that they frequently cover their own losses. So like if they have a water TemTem, they also have like a rock TemTem or something like that. So it's like, or they will have like a poison. For the water, they had like, typically it was like a water and a poison, because it's like, okay, what is going to help me against, like, what would be critical against my team,
Right.
so I can cover their bases. So I would put out like a grass or a leaf or their nature. I would put out a nature TemTem because they're good against water. And it turns out they will Shrek you with like poison techniques and shit like that. It's so hard. I'm enjoying it so much though.
That's good.
I think the thing that kind of sucks is I wish it did have somewhat of a badge system so I could actually like make sense of how many dojos I'd beaten, or that there was like a real, I guess, like in-game tangible reward for beating these, because typically it's just like, okay, you can proceed with the story is all that it is. And since I'm literally only playing TemTem while I'm working, I'm not even reading the story. I literally just click through everything. I'm like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, there's these people that are kind of like Team Rocket that are fucking shit up, and I'm like, cool, I don't care. Like, whatever. I'm just about the battles and the TemTem. That's all I gave a shit about. And okay, so there are a few things that Pokemon does to really incentivize gym battles. They give you the reward of a badge, but then they also increase your level cap, to which your Pokemon will listen to you, so you can't overlevel them. TemTem does not have that. So you can just overlevel the fuck out of your TemTem, which is really nice at some points, but also, like I said last week, you can be super overleveled, but it doesn't actually mean that you'll win a fight. Like, you think that it's going to be like Pokemon, where if I went up against, like, I have a level 50 TemTem going against a level 20, I will trounce them no matter what. That's often not the case. Whereas, like, if they use the right abilities and if they use them the right, like, type advantages, they can easily wipe out my level 50 TemTem. It doesn't matter.
Weird.
And I really like that. It's just the increase in difficulty I really enjoy about TemTem. I think it's a lot of fun. I have since evolved a lot of mine. So I got, like, there are a lot of TemTem that I really, really enjoy. Like, the only thing that sucks is, since it's in early access, there are a lot that I'm catching, hoping that they'll eventually add an evolution, but they currently don't have them. So there's like the few that I really enjoy, like Adoraboros, which is an Ouroboros, like, you know, the snake that eats its own tail. It's meant to reference like nature and the never-ending cycle of it, but it's like a slime, like toxic version of that, and I really like it, but I really, really hope that it has an evolution, because I think it's cool, but I really want it to work. I also don't, since I didn't play a lot of TemTem when it initially came out, I don't know how that will like affect it. So in TemTem, when you catch something, it has a certain amount of levels before it evolves. Doesn't matter if you like, they don't just evolve at level 15. You have to get 15 levels from when you caught it. Yep. And it's like, I don't know how that will work if they eventually do get these evolutions and updates, because like if I already, like, let's say if it requires 25 levels and I've leveled it up 26, when it gets that evolution, will it just evolve, or will I have to do another 26 levels? I'm currently not sure.
Yeah,
I haven't like asked anybody about it.
Right.
So I don't really know, but I'm really loving TemTem. Honestly, like, coming off of Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I thought, like, I didn't like a lot of the creature designs. I didn't like a lot of the designs of the new Pokemon. Some of them I very much enjoyed, but those are also from actually, like, they were holdovers from X and Y and stuff like that, and moved over into Pokemon Sword and Shield. A lot of the ones that they were new mons for that game, I wasn't really, like, impressed with. I didn't love it. TemTem, I'm really loving these designs. I think they're really, really awesome. There are a lot of them that are obviously inspired by Pokemon. So there is, like, one TemTem that is obviously inspired by Muck, and it looks a lot like Muck, where it's just, like, this blob of green, and it just looks like a toxic heap of, like, garbage kind of a deal. And I think that's really cool. They have those that are like nice little homages to Pokemon, and then they have others where it's like there is a TemTem, I believe, called Orifil. And granted, I nicknamed mine, so I don't actually know a lot of their names, which kind of sucks. But this one, I'm fairly certain it's called Orifil, which is like, it's a snake, and it looks vaguely what you would think of like an Ekans, because it looks like a cobra, but it's actually like, it looks like a snake, but with a collar, not like a cobra collar like this, but instead it looks like it's got kind of like a collared shirt in a deal. It's very weird. I would look up Orifil, but then its evolution is much more of like a Hydra, and I think it's so awesome. It looks so cool. It's got like 3 heads, and the animation, when it's static, if you hold still for long enough, and during like battles and stuff, if you take long enough to make choices, the heads will actually attack each other, and they will like interact, and it's very weird. It's very similar to like King Ghidorah in King of the Monsters, or like the Hydra in the animated Hercules movie, stuff like that. It's very, very fun. I think it's awesome. I'm loving the design of a lot of these different TemTem. I really enjoy that they kind of like, they take a different approach to everything, especially when it comes to crystal TemTem, which is like, they're not earth, there is an earth, these are crystal, which is very weird. And I really like it, because they will take something like it kind of looks vaguely like a weasel. There's a TemTem called Vassal, and it looks like a weasel, but it just seems like it's augmented with crystal. Looks very, very cool. Or there's one called Mix that basically just looks like a person wearing a hoodie, but it's all, aka
they're in the game.
Yeah, dude, I really like it. I think TemTem's a lot of fun. Granted, it's still in early access, so it's got problems like, and this isn't an early access problem, this is just a problem I have with TemTem. So, you know how in Pokemon where you get a bike, and you get like, and it's like, okay, cool, you can now take the bike route, or you get like running shoes, or you get like surf or fly. Like, these are each things that are kind of like the Metroidvania aspect of it, where you can now backtrack and check out like previous like areas that you couldn't go to. TemTem has a similar thing where you get a surfboard after the first dojo, which allows you to go to like different islands within the same actual island, because you take an airship to these different floating islands. Technically all islands float. I'm literally talking about in the sky. And then they're like actual islands within these land masses. And you do that with a surfboard. And then later on, you come across these like patches of crystal that actually look like, they're like ice, but they're crystal. And if you go across them with just your feet, you just slide uncontrollably. You can't actually choose which way to go. But you eventually get like ice skates. They're crystal skates, which allow you to just skate across them. But after 2 or 3 dojos, I think it's after the 3rd dojo, you take an airship to the next island. But before you get there, you actually get attacked by what the variant of Team Rocket is, and your airship crashes, and you lose your surfboard and skates. And it's like so fucking annoying. Eventually you get your surfboard back, but you're in this toxic zone, so you have to get this toxic coating for your surfboard, but you don't get your skates back until way later. And it's like, what the fuck? I just got those. And now I can't backtrack to areas where there were crystal anymore. I have to wait until I get skates again, which is just so annoying, because they also have additional pieces of equipment that you get with a like rock hook, and you get spurs that allow you to crawl up mountains. It's like, why would you take away the 2 that you've already given me instead of just giving me another one? It made it so annoying. And I don't know why they did it, because I mean, granted, I know why they did it, because actually it seems like they may have developed themselves into somewhat of a corner, because they give you the skates and the surfboard very early on, but when you get to the toxic area, it's actually much easier to maneuver in if you have those items. Right. And so seemingly the way they design these maps, they're like, okay, you can't have these anymore, because and in that moment they actually take away your TemTem too eventually, so you have to fight with like somebody's TemTem that they give you. What? Granted, it's not for very long, It's only for like a short little romp, but it's very annoying.
That's weird.
And I really hated it because it was like I've only lost a battle like twice. One was my fault because I wasn't paying attention. The other was because I had this like random ass team. And I was like, I fucking hate these. I don't have these TemTem because I don't like them. Yeah. Why do you why are you forcing me to have them? It was so annoying, but ultimately, I think it's a fun game. I like it a lot. I'm very much enjoying myself. And I keep seeing, like, even though I have the TemTem I enjoy, I see people, like, run past me because it has the following mechanic where it's, like, the first person in your squad follows you. Very similar to, like Silver or Soul Silver. Or Let's Go Eevee, I guess, and Let's Go Pikachu. It has that. So I'll see people dash past me with these really dope TemTem that make me want to get them. But then also I will see people have the same TemTem as mine, but a different color variant. And it could be like a shiny or it could be a Luma, which I don't know how to get the Luma ones. I also don't know how to get shinies. So there you go. But it actually is like, it incentivizes me to want to actually figure that out and to catch new TemTem and stuff like that. Plus they have different traits that they can get. And the only thing that sucks about traits though, is that in Pokemon, when you're trying to build a perfect team, you will typically get like, okay, I want a Venusaur with this specific trait. So I will breed a Bulbasaur until I get that trait. Right. But in TemTem, you'll get that trait, but then when you evolve, that trait was replaced with another one. So it's like just constant randomization. So it's like, it's in a sense forcing you to level up TemTem that you may not have actually like, you're like,
grind.
Yeah, it's just hella grindy. You're like, it's probably 3 times the grind as Pokemon, because if most Pokemon have 3 evolutions, if you wanted to do the same with TemTem, it's like, okay, I want the max evolution with this trait, and you just have to grind it out every time until you get that one.
Just hope you
Which granted, they only have 2 or 3, so you wouldn't have to do it too many times, but that would be super annoying.
Yeah.
I would not like that.
Sounds rough.
But I like TemTem. I think it's a lot of fun. I would recommend people play it. I'm actually hoping to get some people to play with, just like kind of fuck around, like do some battling with, trading and stuff like that. But ultimately, right now I'm just running through the story, and I think it's a lot of fun. But holy crap, I had like a frog in my throat, probably because I talk too much. So let's hop into our first news story. This one is actually over on IGN because, of course, we covered what we're playing, big boy. At least I sunk it into the ground, just ranted about TemTem.
That's right, baby.
This first one is over on IGN. It's written by Matt T.M. Kim, and it is one that I'm not going to read a lot about because I only care about the one app, honestly. Epic Game Store offers new apps like itch.io, Brave Browser, and iHeartRadio. The Epic Game Store is expanding. Did I just say expanding?
Yeah. What a word.
Expanding is expanding its offering. I think it's because I mixed expanding and offering. Expandering.
Yeah. Expandering. It's a good word.
Making up new words. It shows creativity. I'm a very employable person if you're looking for somebody creative.
So damn smart.
Inadvertently creative. So the Epic Game Store is expanding its offering for PC apps. Starting today, the Epic Game Store users can download apps like the indie storefront itch.io and the Brave Internet Browser and the Brave Internet Browser and iHeartRadio directly from Epic's digital storefront. Epic already offers apps like Spotify through the Epic Game Store, meaning users can download the Spotify PC client directly from the Epic Game Store rather than going to Spotify's website. These new apps include itch.io, an indie games-focused DRM-free digital storefront where developers can sell games and set their own prices and revenue share. A lot of games sold through itch.io are also based on the pay what you want pricing model. If you have games you're working on yourself, you can set up a storefront and sell your games directly on itch.io. That's the only one, obviously, I wanted to talk about because as indie game podcasters, that's the one we're going to focus on, and not a lot of people, especially like indie game lovers, know about itch.io. Like when I was initially just kind of like an indie game enthusiast, I had no idea that existed. Granted, it's also because it's like a PC exclusive thing. So I want to ask you, do you think that this will like notify people a lot more about the existence of itch.io? Yeah, I don't think it will.
Well, I mean, maybe understanding the existence of it, yes, but no, because ultimately what's going to happen? Epic Games has a lot of different games. They have these random things on there. They probably don't have a good way to filter out difference between apps and the slew of new games that come all the time. So it's just going to get buried. It's just going to be a thing that people can find if they search itch.io, which they won't know to do normally. And also, when I first saw that this was a thing, I didn't really look at the news article and I blatantly shared it, which is a dumb thing to do. But I was just like, oh, damn. I was like, Epic's making moves. They're like trying to partner with Itch here and like, you know, get them on board and whatnot. And I did that because I thought that what they were doing was they were putting the Itch games into their store.
Which I think would be cool.
Which would be cool, like to have an integration where those games would show up through it. And that is not what it is at all. And I tested it out and I downloaded it. And literally what it is, if you want to download the itch.io app, you can go to Itch's website and you could download it there. Or if you got the Epic Game Store one, you could just download it through there. But it's still the same thing. It's still a separate app that launches. You're literally just downloading an app. It does nothing for you. This is why I think this is so stupid. Like, I understand the idea for this being, like, they talk about it later in the article of the idea of Epic trying to be like an Apple, right? Like, it's an ecosystem. It's almost as if they're trying to be a smart TV. And they have these different apps and these different things that you can do, but it's through this one client, which doesn't really do anything from, you know, the grand scheme of things. When you're talking about like, will people know more indie games? Will they be able to find it better? Will they be able to get it through the Epic Game Store? Like, no, they won't. They'll be able to use the itch.io app, which they could have done the entire time. And will anyone do this? Maybe, but I don't know that it's going to really make a difference in, you know, the giant pool that is the indie games like industry.
Dude, here's the thing. They say that Epic Games, like they offer the apps. I don't know how you get to the apps through the Epic Game Store. I literally have zero fucking idea.
I found it through their store page because it was like highlighted.
Yeah, exactly. Like I unless they put like a massive kind of like piece of branding on it, I don't know how you would find these apps like easily, how they would easily be searchable unless you go to the search bar and go to like itch.io, which I'll do right now.
Yeah, you would literally just have to search by their name, which is why I'm saying
why wouldn't you just
no one will ever find it if they're using this, because no one's going to go through Epic to find itch.io, because then you would just go to itch.io. Like, there's someone in the comments for IGN who was like, why would I not go to all of their separate websites for this? Like, why am I even doing it through Epic? Like, what do they have to do with any of these other pieces of just getting a downloadable, executable file?
I think it would be a bigger thing if it was more like if it was heavily showcased and people understood what these apps were, because it's like you understand what Spotify is, and because there are a decent amount of people with the Epic Game Store on their PCs already that may not know about itch.io, I think if they heavily featured it like on their storefront, like immediately they're just like, check out these apps, here's itch.io, and they may have given a little bit of a description where they're just like, indie games, DRM free, shit like that. Like, maybe more people would click on it. But as of right now, the fact that like I would have to literally search itch.io on Epic, and it's like that's all I would have to do, literally that exact phrase I would just have to Google, because that's actually their web address. Right. I would have to Google, is just ridiculous. Like, this does literally nothing for Itch. I don't understand. Because Epic Game Store, like, their store is cool. My friend Chase, like, really enjoys their store. It's very simplistic. It's minimal. It looks kind of cool. I will admit that. Versus, like, Steam, which seems very cluttered. For the most part. And it's yeah, it is. And it's hard to navigate sometimes, but once you get it, you kind of get it. And I think the Epic Game Store has that up on Steam. Whereas there's that, but them saying that like they're trying to become any sort of like a hub, they're trying to become an ecosystem. It's like, but they only advertise games. How was I didn't even know they had fucking Spotify through
I
here.
never knew that either.
Yeah, literally had no idea until they said it. And I'm like, how are you supposed to know about this when Epic literally does zero to actually showcase it? The only thing that's on there currently that says anything about apps is that one moving tile that is just like, we now have these new apps. And it's just like, only because you had the news of these new apps are you actually showcasing them. Literally, like the buttons on the side are just like welcome, store, library, Unreal Engine. No apps, no nothing. And it was like, it would be easier if they just had apps where it's like, okay, cool, I'll go right there. Maybe that would cut out some of the time of having to search for something. Because granted, like, you'd go to itch.io and then you'd have to be like, okay, download client, whatever. If that just immediately downloaded it for you, that would take out an extra step, whatever. But as of right now, you're literally performing the exact same amount of steps that you would. It's like, I have to type in the same exact shit. It just doesn't matter. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this does anything for anyone, really. I mean,
yeah.
Granted, maybe it paves the way for something that they're trying to do later, but right now,
hopefully,
it doesn't seem like much. Honestly, what I want is for them to integrate it so that you can search itch.io games through that client and you could be like,
that would be cool.
Like that would be great. That would be like, oh yeah, you can buy these games through Epic, which will transfer that money over to itch and whatever. Like there's obviously legalities that go between that, but having that as an integrated system that itch could work on with Epic to make it so like, hey, it's one of the things I love, you know, the idea of DRM free, but I want them to be in a library, and I would love for it to be something where you can buy it. It could be listed in your Epic Games store, like library, but you also get the file and have like a link that you can go to download the DRM free version if you want to do it that way. Like, I think that would be great.
Yeah, just like, I mean, that would be basically like every other game that's in the Epic Game Store that you purchase. Is like, it's in your library, but you also have your own like links and stuff.
Right, exactly. Which you could go to at any time if you wanted to. I think that would be, like, if they did that, dude, that would be a really good step in the right direction of being like a real competitor to Steam, other than just we give out free games sometimes or all the time.
Yeah, it's honestly, I've been pretty gung-ho about the Epic Games Store for a while because I love the prospect of the reason that it exists is because they want a larger share for developers. I think that's amazing. I think developers deserve that because at times Steam does not actually, like, I personally believe that Steam does not do enough to get at least for some games, does not do enough that justifies the revenue share that they get. It's just too large sometimes.
Yep.
Especially because it's so cluttered and it's, like I said before, it's kind of clunky. It's hard to use sometimes. Like, they don't do enough. We have these other storefronts now, but also I'm realizing now that Epic is just kind of taking half steps and half measures. Like, it seems like they made this and they said they put out the press release to try to get some good press that's like, hey, use the Epic Game Store, developers will get a larger cut. And then after that, they basically were just like, now we're just going to abandon the Epic Game Store. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, games will come to it, but it's not a big deal. We'll give out some free games to like get people to have the client.
Right.
But outside of developers getting more money, there's literally no reason that I would use the Epic Game Store because it fucking blows.
I haven't seen anything from like a client perspective of the actual app, that like the Epic Game Store app, that has changed since it first launched. I mean, I might be biased just because I'm not constantly watching it, but like I don't see a lot about it being changed. And Epic's got money. Like, they're buying every company known to man recently. Like, they have the money to throw to someone to be like, hey, fix our client here and just, you know, make it so it's the best digital storefront that people could go into and have this wonderful experience. And if they did that, they'd have a much better time actually convincing people to jump ship.
Yeah, because most people don't give a shit about, like, I mean, this sounds bad, but a lot of people don't care about or don't know about the revenue shares on Steam.
Right.
So just like saying use ours because it gives them a higher revenue share and that's where we're going to do exclusive games and stuff like that, it's going to piss more people off than anything because, like I said, a lot of people don't care But if they actually started making their, like you said, make their storefront worthwhile, then it would make sense. But adding apps that I would literally have to search the same exact shit that I would on Google does not help me at all. Yeah. It's like, okay, because what is even the point of this?
It seems so weird because Epic's like, they're playing this out as if they're, like I said, a smart TV. Yeah. But you're not getting that through this. Like, this isn't a TV. It's a computer that has all of these apps that can run on their own. Like, you don't need... I don't know. And it's so weird because you're literally just getting a downloadable, like an executable file and launching it through them. But it still downloads as its own app. It still will open as its own app. It's not going to be like an Epic skinned thing. It's like you literally just, oh, the download file is here. And you can launch it through our other app, which is like, why would I open one app to then open another?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I just open the app I want? Why would I, like, that's why I think the integration part of it would make so much more sense, because then it would be a cohesive theme of, I want this game that's from itch, but I can buy it through Epic, you know, and view all of the information there if I want, because I want to live inside this app that I have, which I play most of my games. So why not have this you know, other world that is accessible through it, as opposed to just be like, oh, I'll open up my Epic Game Store app so that I can open up my itch.io app so that I could then find a game so that I could play that. It's like, what? No, what are you doing? Why are you adding more steps?
Yeah. It's both streamlining the process and making it a little bit like more complicated. You're just like, why? Honestly, I think the first thing that they need to do, they need to have a big goal to move towards. I think that in the specific example of itch.io, I think integrating their library into the Epic Game Store is perfect. I think that's a great idea. Granted, I doubt they'll ever do it because of the like pay what you want model that a lot of people use on itch, and how exactly that would work with the Epic Game Store. I don't really know. But
I mean, there's also legal issues that would have to be worked out. There's a lot that would go into it. Like, that's a big, like, that's not just a sweep it under the rug with these other apps kind of a thing. Like, that would be that's very like much
a real investment.
Yeah, like, we did a big thing. Itch is part of Epic now in a way. Like, but I don't foresee that happening. That's why when I first heard this news, I was kind of like blown away, and I was like, whoa! But I just didn't really see.
Yeah, when you looked into it, you're like, this is nothing.
You're like, oh.
It's literally like you're just making shit more complicated. So I think, what they need to reach toward if they really want to like make a wave is something like what you're talking about. But right now, I think the bare minimum that they need to do is actually showcase these apps. If you want to say you have apps, be like literally on your home screen, have an apps tab, have it actually displayed, not just like, okay, I open up the Epic Game Store and there's 25 games that it's like, buy this, you've got free games, you got this. All they showcase is games, and now they're trying to be like, look at us, we've got apps. And it's like, why? I mean, how would I know that? By actually clicking on your, like, by using your client. I would have no fucking idea unless I read this news story. Mm-hmm. So they need to like start advertising these. And I think once they do, I think the common thread of the Epic Game Store, how many people have it for the free games, I think that will, in a small part, benefit itch when they start actually advertising it, because people will be like, oh, what's itch.io? I'll check it out, kind of a thing. It's kind of like a word of mouth. But currently, it's just basically impossible to find unless you yourself wanted to find it, which if you did, then why wouldn't you just look it up on fucking Google? Like, it's dumb. Whatever. We've sucked this one dry, so time to talk about something with far less substance, which is actually kind of hilarious. So once again, over on IGN, this one's written by Wesley LeBlanc. And they write, Celeste devs tease next game with a vibe reveal. And this is in quotes because that's actually what they called it. Extremely OK Games, the developers of Celeste, have teased its next game, and it's a pixel art 2D exploration game called Earthblade. Extremely OK Games' Maddie Thornton released a blog post today all about Earthblade, and the team is referring to the announcement as a vibe reveal.
I don't like the idea of this A vibe reveal. Get out of here.
The reason the team went with vibe reveal is because it didn't want to reveal much about the game or its story yet, but it thinks this reveal will establish the word and feeling of being in it. The vibes, as it were, come by way of a teaser poster, which you can view above, and a track for the game's soundtrack, which is here composed by Celeste composer Lena Rain, I believe is how you say their name. Mm-hmm. Really great music, by the way. I mean, I love the music in Celeste, but also listening to this track, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, good.
I would say I get the vibes in a sense.
Yeah.
Thornton says the air of mystery surrounding the vibe reveal works well for the game, which is why Extremely OK Games has opted to save the details about the game's story and more for a big reveal that will hopefully blow your socks off is what I was going to say.
Today's a hard day.
As for what is known, however, it took the team 4 different prototypes to find Earthblade, according to the blog's post. A lot of this doesn't really matter. They currently don't have a release date.
Nothing of this matters.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's up in the air. Seemingly it's going to release within the next couple of years, but they don't actually know. But right now, all we have is a teaser poster, which granted looks very cool. It looks very, I would say, like old school, like PS2
It reminds me of
RPG-esque.
the Secret of Mana series.
Exactly, yeah. It does look a lot like Secret of Mana. Yeah. And they have one song, as far as I know. They only have the one that's out right now. It sounds pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's very much like Celeste, but it also has this kind of like this background track of, I would say, ambient noise, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Which it's like, okay, that would totally make sense because you want it to both sound like you're outside, but also have this really cool track. So it's like, this would obviously be something where you're traveling through the environment. It's very interesting, but right now the vibes are that I don't give a shit. Like it's... Oof. I mean, I'm totally on your side of the boat right now where it's just like, you gotta show us something of the game.
Yeah.
If they gave us any sort of gameplay or anything more, like showed us a main character, said anything about the story, literally any of it, I would actually, like, I would be excited. Yeah, like, I would be hyped.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. I think it's really cool that it's going to be that 2D action-adventure game and exploration game, because I think that's obviously a step in a different direction from Celeste, which I welcome. I think that the team does a well job with writing, and I think they obviously have platforming down as far as, you know, a gameplay mechanic. I'm interested to see what the adventure side is, if this is like a combat type of adventure game, which I assume it would be with the name Earthblade. But it's one of those things where you're like, I'm going to pick up whatever comes from this studio because I know that they're going to do something great, or it's something that I'm going to be interested in, because, you know, you created Celeste, which was an amazing game, so I'm sure that you'll do a good job in the next one. But like, giving me the vibe is like such a fucking tease. It's like, why just don't just keep working on it. Like, you could just do your vibes. Like, I'll get my own vibes when you reveal it to me. All right, I don't need you to tell me how to vibe.
People like that play Celeste and know, like, literally just having the idea in your head that these people are making another game. Like, you don't need any information about it. You are already hyped about it. Releasing this does literally nothing to that. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't increase, it doesn't decrease. I already knew you'd be working on another game. Sure, the idea of an exploration game, I think that's cool because you've shown your expertise in both storytelling and gameplay. Granted, I never beat Celeste because I fucking suck at video games, but the bit that I played, I know that it's a great game, and I know that it has a fantastic story. At least I've heard from a lot of people, and I've played a decent amount of it. But it's like, this does nothing for me. It's like, cool. Like, what do we know now about it? It's called Earthblade. It's a fantasy setting, and it's possibly going to have some action. Plus, it's going to have some dope... It's going to have a dope soundtrack. And it's like, I basically... other than its fantasy setting, I already would have known that. kind of a deal. Like you would assume before this even came out that they're going to work on a game that is like heavy and awesome gameplay with a great soundtrack if they still had Lena. And it's like, yeah, I still know that. Now I just know the name and that it's going to be a fantasy game.
That's it. That's it, baby.
That's all you gave me there.
Let's wait 3 years and we'll talk about it and it'll be great.
I know. It's just, it's so weird. It's kind of like, I don't understand why they want people to get so hyped right now. It's kind of like you talked about one of your, I believe in last week's episode or something like that. You talked about how you have a developer interview coming up and they were saying like, oh, it's going to be like a month until it. And you're just like, I mean, you don't have anything to lead up to. So it's like, it's not leading up to a Kickstarter or anything. So like, we're just getting the word out about it. You're fostering a community kind of a deal, but they are just like they're getting people hyped for something for no reason. Yeah. It's like they have nothing to show for it. It's just like, guess what? We're working on something. People are already excited.
Think about how many people are pissed off because Silk Song is taking a long time.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like you kind of almost just wish it's kind of the same deal. It's like, I love the fact that whatever is coming out of Ken Levine, like his studio, we have no fucking idea. Like, I'm not a BioShock fan, and I know BioShock fans are excited, but I also know if Ken Levine 2 years ago showed you a trailer, people would be fucking pissed now. Because they'd be like, where the fuck is this game? Yeah, what is happening?
People are impatient.
Yeah, and now since there's like such an air of mystery around this, people are excited for literally anything.
Yeah.
Where it's just like
it sets people to create these wild imaginations and perspectives or visions in their mind that if it is wrong when it does get revealed, sets a potential, moment of failure because someone is going to find out that the game is something they didn't think it was because they had years to ruminate on it and discuss it and talk about it. And then when it comes out, they're like, oh, this isn't what I want. Whereas they might have not known anything about it, just saw what it was and been like, oh, okay, sure. Never thought about it. So it's probably a great game anyway. I'm just going to jump right into it.
Yeah. That's definitely a good point. Like if they now that they've shown Earthblade, if they show that it's like a turn-based tactics game, people are gonna be so annoyed. Yeah. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck?" Versus I think if they were just like, "Our next game is a turn-based tactics game," I think some people, granted, would be kind of annoyed.
Yeah.
But I think it would be far less. Yeah. Granted, you're always gonna piss somebody off. It literally doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could make Celeste again, and there would be those few people that are just like, why would you do this? Make something else. It's just like, whatever. Okay. But, yeah, it's all a deal.
Well, at least we got a good vibe.
Yeah, our last news story for today, I mostly included this because there are the few festivals that I have literally no idea about. And like understanding.
I don't have much to offer to this news article. I was like, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Me neither. Yeah, the reason that I wanted to include it is because there are those few festivals and there are those few like indie game scenes
and this is a big one, too.
Yeah, as a part of the industry, we know almost nothing about, so I wanted to make sure we talked about it. So this one is over on Nintendo Life. It's written by Ryan Craddock, and it is Nintendo will attend Brazil's Independent Game Festival, Latin America's biggest games event. With the Switches officially launching in the country last September, Nintendo finally appears to be making its presence felt in Brazil. Now the company is set to appear at Brazil's Independent Games Festival, so big is what they call it. The biggest event of its kind in Latin America, which is really awesome that it's an indie game festival. Just pointing that out. That's really cool. The festival is taking place from the 3rd to the 9th of May and will feature more than 90 games in total. What sets this festival apart from others, however, is the fact that a variety of the games industry big names will be hosting their very own presentations aimed at aspiring developers and small studios. The likes of Nintendo, Xbox, and Ubisoft, as well as Google and Amazon. I think it's weird that Google is there, by the way. This is like, Stadia is nothing now.
Stadia.
Yeah, it's so
Come
weird.
on, it's the wave of the future.
I mean, I also don't get why Amazon is there, but whatever.
They've got stuff too.
Yeah, they're making games, but they're also canceling it. They canceled the fucking Lord of the Rings MMO. I'm so pissed, dude. They fucking, what did they put out that one game that was so garbage that they
got ripped
they
off.
unreleased it.
Oh, what was it called?
And then I think they have since canceled it as well. Then they like canceled the Lord of the Rings game. New World has been delayed like 3 times. Like Amazon is not doing great.
They're not because they don't.
There was
Crucible.
also that
Crucible. That's what it was.
Yeah, Crucible. And then there was also that, like, what is that car show that everybody gets super hard about? Top Gear. They put out a Top Gear game that's apparently dick. And it's just like, what are you doing, Amazon? Why are you? I just don't understand. It's so weird to me. But granted, I'm really excited for New World, so I'm just going to shut my mouth. I hope it comes out, and I hope it's awesome. We'll all hold talks during the event. For Nintendo's talk, representatives of the company will present panels on a number of topics, including how to successfully ship a console game from Latin America, how to ship Nintendo titles out of Brazil, and why Nintendo wants more Brazilian titles to launch on Switch. The full schedule for Big can be found at this news article, so be sure to head over to Nintendo Life, check this one out. But it is going to be starting on Tuesday. The presentation will kick off on Tuesday, the 4th of May at 9 a.m. Brazil time. And then, of course, you could do your own deal. And seemingly the festival will also be showcased on YouTube and a variety of like other sources, so you could check those out. But I really wanted to talk about this just because it's a game festival that I had no fucking idea existed. Especially when it comes to indie games, I feel like there are more game festivals that nobody knows about than there are the ones they do. So it's like, right now, we all know about showcases. So there's like the Nintendo Indie World Showcase. There's like the Wholesome Direct. We know about directs. Those happen all the time. The Devolver Direct, like we know that those exist. And then there apparently are a bunch of festivals that I had no idea about, and I've been doing this podcast for like over 2 years, and like nobody has ever mentioned them. I swear to God.
Yeah. It's
just weird shit that comes up, and I think it's amazing. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Make sure people know that this exists, that there is seemingly a fairly large indie game scene in Brazil. And there are also some in Japan and stuff like that. So, yeah, how do you feel about this? You also said that you really didn't have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to this. I think I'm pretty much at the same boat as you are, where I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I never knew anything about it. Looking at their schedule, I think it's actually really interesting because it is very much centered around people who want to build indie games or be successful in this world. So you have things like,
it's kind of like a GDC.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit more tailored towards those people getting together and kind of talking about how to bring each other up and whatnot and what to do that's right. I think it's super cool. I think it's interesting. I think it's weird that I think this is a in-person event because Brazil is having such a hard time with COVID. At least it seems like it's an in-person event.
I was like, it is?
Yeah. I mean, they have room capacities on all of these links, which I don't know if that's the online room or if that's an in-person room or if they're in there. I don't know. It's a little confusing. I guess it doesn't matter because I'm never going to Brazil right now for this. But
dude, Jason could go, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, don't get sick there, bro.
I know. Yeah, well, I wonder how far away he is from Brazil. Anyway, point being, actually, there's no point being on that. But the point that I was trying to make before that was, I think it's super cool. I think it's interesting. I think it's hard to get coverage for a lot of this because there's even some comments where there's apparently like a much bigger Brazilian game showcase festival called BGS. But it's more of like a AAA side of things. So I think it's interesting that there is this one that's specifically just about, independent games.
And people just trying to get into the industry.
Yeah.
Which is like the most asked question that I would say exists is how do I start to do that? Because it's like everyone writes into podcasts and is like, how would you recommend that I start making content, or how would I start actually making video games and stuff? And I think it's awesome that they do have these like festivals that are like, we're gonna fucking teach you how to get into this. It's all up to you at that point, but we will actually give you the tools to succeed, which I think is really cool.
Right. I think it's great.
Yeah, me too. But it's time for us to hop into News Cram.
Cram.
News Cram is our weekly wrap-up segment where we, the hosts of Indie Pod and Indie Games Podcast, cram you full of all sorts of indie game news. This week in News Cram, we do have a couple quick news stories. No new deals or quick steals, at least that are like we could talk about because they're not just disappearing in like a day or so. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at IndiePod for those ones because that shit happens all the time. They do not give you a lot of forewarning with a lot of sales and stuff that happen. So be sure to follow us there. And of course, we got a bunch of new stuff. So our first quick news story for today comes by way of IGN, where it's reported that co-op puzzle game It Takes Two by Hazelight has officially sold over 1 million copies since its March 25th release. So as of the time of this recording, they've sold over 1 million copies in a month. Like, technically, this actually came out earlier, so less than a month.
Right. Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and I think, I forget his name, but the Fuck the Oscars guy, he basically, like, went on to say that, like, this means that people actually give a shit about co-op games. Granted, I don't think A Way Out was, like, massive, and neither was Brothers, but It Takes Two is kind of, like, a hit right now. Yeah. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I really want to play
also am saying that I've almost pure ignorance because I don't know how those titles sold, but I do not think that they sold this well this fast.
Probably not.
Yeah. That action roguelike game Hades by Supergiant Games continues to clear up at awards shows as it picks up another Game of the Year win, as well as a outstanding achievement in game direction, outstanding achievement in game design, Action Game of the Year, and outstanding achievement for an indie game at this year's DICE Awards. Now, nice. I do have to ask you, I think I'm just being too sensitive about this, and I feel like I was like predisposed to be annoyed about this because I'm one of those people who does not like the independent category. But the wording of outstanding achievement for an indie game, like an independent game, just feels insulting to me. I'm going to be honest about that. That's just like, it's kind of like, oh, you did good for a little kid. You pat on the head. You did good.
It is strange because why don't they just call it like indie game of the year, right?
Yeah. Like, or just like outstanding achievement in indie game development or something like that. It's just like, but outstanding achievement for an indie game is just like, what do you mean by that?
I think you're reading too far into it, but I get it.
I totally know I am, but it's just like it seems like a subtle jab. I'm being real here. They're like, we don't expect a lot from you, but you did the best. Game. Yeah, it's just I don't know. But like I said, I was definitely predisposed to get annoyed by that dumb little shit. So whatever. Hades continues to sweep. It's fucking awesome. They won like 6 awards. It's crazy. Now over to GameSpot, where it's reported that Apogee Software, publishers of games like Duke Nukem, Prey, and Max Payne, talking about like early shit, has rebranded to Apogee Entertainment and will now focus on publishing indie games. They currently have a game that they're publishing in the works, but there wasn't like a whole lot about it, so I didn't include that. But if you, I guess, are a fan of the games they published before, I don't know, publishers are always so weird to me, where it's just like, just because they are publishing a game doesn't mean they have any sort of like interaction with the development team. That's why when I talk about a game that like, when I say who the game is by, I say the developer, I don't mention publishers.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, because it's kind of tough because some publishers I think get it really well where they, stick to games that kind of have the same theme or same general feel. But then you'll have others that are just like, we just publish whatever. And you're like, okay, well, how do I know what comes out of you?
Yeah, I think it's all just weird. It's granted, I don't know what goes into publishing a game. Like, it's very possible that they do a lot more than I think. But I feel like, I think the reason that I often like disregard publishers is because it's very similar to the thing where it's like, I don't want this thing to always be associated with that. Like, it's only good because it's associated with that. So, like, every time Devolver publishes a game, it does
no one knows the
help.
developer.
Yeah, exactly. It does help the Devolver like gets the word out because people know what to expect from Devolver, but then nobody knows who actually developed the game. They'll be like, oh, that new Devolver game. And I'm like, it's not though.
Yeah.
They did not develop this game. They published it. And that has always annoyed me. But I understand it's kind of like, I imagine for the developers too, it's about like, yeah, we don't kind of get all the recognition we deserve for actually making this video game, but people are buying our game because it's associated with their brand.
And then later you could be like, we did this when the next game comes out, and be like, the creators of blah, 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 so that they can get away with it. But yeah, because I've heard it before too, even on like gaming podcasts, I've heard people who are like, Devolver Digital is a great developer. And I'm like, they're a publishing company. Like,
yeah, I think they've dipped into like, there are some games that they have actually developed, but not a massive amount. Like a lot of the games that are associated with Devolver are just published by them, which once again, just saying it, I don't understand what goes into publishing. It's very possible that they do a lot, but I just kind of hate that like everyone thinks that they developed these games, when it's like you're not actually giving the credit to the people who did it. And it's always kind of bothered me. So moving on, because News Cram is supposed to be quick. And lastly, over on Nintendo Life, where it's reported that point-and-click adventure game The Dark Side Detective: A Fumble in the Dark by Spooky Doorway has been pulled from the North American eShop, yet no clear reason was given. I didn't put down here, though, they did say they expect it's going to come up pretty soon. It's going to come back pretty soon. There are some problems, but they don't expect it'll be anything that they couldn't fix within like a week or two. So
right.
If it's still not up, it should be soon, as far as I know. Now on to some new stuff. Our first 7 items in new stuff come by way of Nintendo Life, where it's reported that turn-based RPG Adventure by Infamous Rabbit is set to release on the Nintendo Switch sometime in Q2 2022. It's also coming to PC at that point in time. It's kind of like super off. They are coming to Kickstarter eventually, but yeah, I imagine you can hear that in the indie developer interview going live this Wednesday. Check it out. That creature collecting game Monster Harvest by Maple Powered Games has been delayed from its May 13th release date and is now releasing on July 8th. That popular Roguevania Dead Cells by Motion Twin and Evil Empire has just received a new update titled Whack-A-Mole, which adds new weapons, several new mutations, a new diet, and much more to the game. That strategy game Football Drama, that's its actual name, just letting everybody know. Football Drama, because it was actually kind of hard to Google, by Open Lab Games and Demigiant, I think that's how you're supposed to, or Demigiant? I don't know. I'm going to go with Demigiant because that sounds way cooler. Is headed to the Nintendo Switch on May 6th. That action-adventure game Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling by Moonsprout Games is getting a physical release through Limited Run Games, with the standard edition of the game costing $39.99. By the way, this is only available on the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. Just thought I'd get that out. But the standard edition, $39.99. The collector's edition costing $89.99. So that's $90, which also includes a V plush, 3 enamel pins, several spy cards. They're basically like the card, like physical versions of the cards that are in the game. The game's soundtrack, of course, on CD, and a papercraft diorama. Pre-orders are live right now, so if you're interested, be sure to get your copy before they're gone. That, now, just another one. That action-adventure game, and this one's interesting. Narita Boy by Studio Koba is getting a physical collector's edition, yet this one comes in at a whopping, how much do you think this one costs?
Well, it's a full arcade machine, so
Damn it! I was hoping you didn't look!
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a couple of thousand.
It costs $11,000.
That's a big, that's a big boy. It's a hefty boy.
Which includes the game's soundtrack, a copy of the game on all platforms, a console controller, which I don't know what that means. They said it in their like advertisement that it comes with a console controller. I don't know if that means that they will have a Narita Boy controller like made for you based on what console you're playing or what you want. I have no idea. Like, I really don't know what that means. And its very own Narita Boy arcade cabinet, among other things. I believe, I would have to check out the news article itself. The proceeds are actually going toward, like, the game's preservation fund for this, like, $11,000 one. And the last time I checked, there's only one more available. So, I don't know if, like, yeah, if people are into it, head over there. You got $11,000 to spend. Do it. Dude, if I had this kind of money, I would have bought that fucking light gun game. What is it? It's the Enter the Gungeon one, but I forget what it's called. House of the Gungeon, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to play that so bad. And lastly, that action roguelike game Dungeon and Gravestone by Wonderland Kazakiri Inc. That threw me off. Wonderland Kazakiri Inc. is now available on the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam. Now over to Polygon, and this, I'm going to be honest, this one annoys me. Where it's reported that action-adventure game Samurai Gun 2 by, and here we fucking go, okay? Jesus. By Bew Blythe, Nelson Bowles, Valentine Siege, it's like Dozone or Dozen. I don't really know. Adam Rubezzoli, Evan Hamsley, and Yellow Afterlife.
Why didn't they just
is
come
on
up with a
its
team
way
name?
To Steam Early Access sometime this summer. I was like, dude, just like have any sort of team name right there. Be like fucking Team Blue or something like that. Like, you don't need to be a studio, but that's just too many. That's too many. Okay? And lastly, that simulation game, Power Wash Simulator by Future Lab, is headed to Steam Early Access sometime in Q2 2021.
A+ on the title of that article, by the way.
Yeah, the like Power Wash goes burr or something like that.
Power Washer game go burr.
Yeah, that one's weird. That threw me off like pretty hard. I was like, what do you mean by that? And then, of course, like there are those few games that I truly don't understand why people like them so much. So that would be like the Power Wash Simulator, like the Ice Road Truckers games, the
Trucker
Farming
games are
Simulator.
So weird to me.
I don't get it, dude. They throw me off so much, and it's just like, it's probably a good jelly, not my jam scenario or something like that. I truly don't understand.
Don't get it.
I don't get it. But, Big Josh Boy, it is time for us to give back to the creators. In our next segment, God Bless the Crowd, this is where the biggest of average just hops into all sorts of different crowdfunding sites, find something awesome for us to talk about, and we do just so. This week, we're headed over to Kickstarter to check out a game called Zoe and the Cursed Dreamer. It's a cozy open-world RPG. Explore an immersive open world and meet lovable, quirky characters. The developers are looking for $25,000. At the time of this recording, they have $10,965 with 346 backers and 7 days left to go. Of course, this one's getting very close to the wire, so if you're listening to this on Friday, if it sounds interesting, head over. You can get in on the ground floor, I believe, at only $15, which is not a high price for this. Plus, you get the backer-exclusive Discord title. But I will admit, I'm going to be real, this is a weird one, okay? So, Big Josh Boy, you chose a game that's not really a game. Instead, people are kind of investing in this guy's personality.
Yep.
It's very weird because he's such a cute guy. I really like him, and I like the idea of this Kickstarter. Like, okay, so normally I hand it off to Josh to explain this because I'm like, I don't understand like a lot of these games kind of a thing, or I like have a few critiques. But this one is essentially, this guy is building a game that's nowhere near done, seemingly, but you're investing in the journey, or what this guy's ideal game would be. But the trailer is just him talking about how he's developing the game.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I'm like,
this is the interesting side.
What is the game, bro?
This is the interesting side of Kickstarter, where you can have games at all different parts of their life cycle.
Yeah, where this one's just like, it seems to be kind of at the middle of development, but also very early development, where there seem to be several things that are fleshed out, like the pixel art and the world looks really, really cool. But the developers also talking about how they just implemented these really interesting new aspects, like a new companion system that is derived from enemies being able to attack each other. And I liked that it in itself was actually a devlog, because this developer, Game Endeavor, is actually somewhat famous for their, I would say, like, internet famous in a sense, because they do have like 50, I think, or 500, something like that, K subs over on YouTube, over over a million views. And they just put out like devlogs and following the development or the continued kind of like education of a game developer, which is very, very cool, but also so weird at the same time, where it's like, I've always been the person who's on the fence about a game because they don't tell you enough. It's like, cool, it sounds interesting as a concept, but I don't know what the game is. That often happens with these. And this one is just like, the thing that's really being sold here is the developer. That's it. Like, the game itself seems interesting, but it's really just the personality that's being sold. And it's so weird to me. What do you think about it?
No, I think it's true, and I think it is a very warranted concern. A great example is, I backed a long time ago a game called I think it's Rainbow Billy and the Curse of the Leviathan, and it
you told me that.
Very much at the early stage looked like a Cuphead-esque game, where it had this very old-timey animation to it. I was really into the aesthetics of it, the combat and the gameplay mechanics that were shown off in that, and they worked on it. Because it was very early in development, it was very early in the cycle, and it was more of, this style of, hey, we have a few things down, we want to work on XYZ, here's our big plan, here's our motion. And it's been like 4 years or so now, I think, since then. The game is still not out, so I'm still waiting on that. And it was developed in a way where things had changed so drastically that there was a point where they said, hey, everything is really different. If you want, you can have your money back, and you could just say, I don't want this anymore. Like, that's how much had changed. And that's very much a Kickstarter thing that could happen. Granted, you will not always get the opportunity to get your money back. Like, that was very nice on their part that they did that. Yeah. And honestly, part of me kind of wishes I had done it, because looking at the game now, don't have as much interest in it, but I was like, it's fine. What is $15 at this point that I've already given up so long ago really gonna amount to me? So I was like, you could just keep it. Maybe I'll love the game. We'll find out, kind of a thing. But like, that is very much a thing that could happen. You could enjoy this, and like, here's what this game is. This game is a very interesting mechanic where all of the enemies and worlds in this pixel art game are fighting each other and kind of acting in their own AI system. You have a cool companion system where you can capture some of the enemies or some of these creatures and have them on your side, who will help and interact with you while fighting these different beings in the world. You have a very minimal structure as far as certain characters that are given to you, and a very vague story about a tyrannical, like this what is it? It's
tyrannical
God. Excuse me, thank you. Tyrannical overlord that's taking over the world or something to that nature. Like, very, very vague. So really, like you said, you're kind of just saying, does the art style look good? Does the major cool feature of having companions and having a world that is interacting without you, but also, able to be interacted with? And do you enjoy this person and think that they have the mindset to create something that you would enjoy? And if you say no to any of those, then this is not the Kickstarter for you, right? Like, I think that's honestly why, because looking at this game, there's a lot of cool shit to it. I'm surprised it hasn't done better for a Kickstarter.
Me too,
but I think
actually.
the real issue is that, their estimated delivery is in 2024. That's 3 years from now. That could be such a different game by then. And I think it's the worry that this might be something that like I'm not getting enough information to make that accurate decision, or like it could be totally different by the time I pick it up.
Yeah, I would say that this is like a lot of developers offer this, but they don't do it in the same way, where every developer pretty much offers updates on the game if you back it, which is pretty cool. But very few of them offer you what I would say this specific case is, where you can literally follow the development of this game through live streams and video content. You can see how it's being made, you can see the person behind it, and you can see the step-by-step kind of evolution of the game. Mm-hmm. Granted, if it does change a lot by 2024, that's kind of a leap you're going to have to take. Yeah. But I do think that that's really, really cool. The idea of being able to kind of like follow this step by step as it's being made is very, very cool. Yeah. And to be like, in a sense, part of that development, where you could like be in a live stream and you could be like, I remember when you were developing this feature when it comes out in 2024, kind of a deal. Like, I think this is one of those Kickstarters that is like so much more about community building than it is actually about the game itself. Yeah. And I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, honestly. I would say so. And like, this isn't the first person to ever think of doing this style of development, of having it so that people are with you along the for the ride. Like, there's a couple other developers that I've seen that have games that are in either early access or games that are like in the state, like about to be in a Kickstarter, that have done stuff like this. Although it's not as common, because a lot of people try to keep some of that stuff hidden for obvious reasons, that not everything needs to be shown, because you don't want to give away everything. But I think it is a really cool thing. I think it's not done as frequently as I'd love to see, and I think it is good that at least, you know, if that is your concern that things might change, you'd have an open window into it, and you'd see kind of why the developer is making those decisions, or can be part of that, you know, that community that says like, no, don't do that, because what about XYZ, and like maybe convince the developer, if enough people are behind it, to say like, what if we did it this way instead? And like, you could in that form shape the game itself, which I think is really cool. But yeah, it's hard from an individual perspective, where a lot of people look at Kickstarter and they're like, I just want the game. And it's like, that's not what this is, which is a shame, because I hope that, you know, we talked a lot about kind of the issues with this as opposed to the game itself, which I think does it a little bit of a disservice, because I really do think that the things that were showcased are super cool. Like, I love the enemies like fighting each other in that world. I think that the companion part is pretty cool, and I liked hearing about, you know, kind of the struggles of that development piece. Like, I think it's super interesting, and I hope that it's a good game. I hope that other people think that as well, and maybe want to give to this developer, because I'd love to see them still make it, which I don't know, because it's kind of a far stretch for them right now, because they have 1,500 to make within the 7 days, which isn't impossible, but it's tough.
Yeah.
But
but there are those like cases where we've heard there's like the most success they've seen, or the most traffic they see, is in like the first and last weeks.
First and last, yeah. So hopefully, you know, because we're showcasing it, everyone will want to give their money, and they'll make it. But like, I don't know. I think that personally, it's still something that is worthwhile, and there's probably people out there who might want to give to this. I don't know that this would be really my game, as far as that like cozy open world RPG. Like, I think there's probably parts of it, like, it reminds me a little bit about Forager in a way. I know we just talked about recently, and that's probably why. But like, that was never like, it's just not my type of game. But I think that there's a lot of cool aspects to this. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. We'll see kind of where it goes. I don't know that they're going to make the Kickstarter, but I would recommend that everyone check them out, tweet it out, you know, share it, whatever you can do, because maybe there are people who want to back this and give it a go, and I'd hope to see it.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, I would recommend like one, yes, tweeting it out, getting it out to everybody, but also subscribing to the Game Endeavor over on YouTube, because
Right.
they do publish content. Like, it's not technically like on a schedule. They seemingly have like large gaps where it's like they had like 7 months, then they had 6 months, then they had 4 months, then they had like a couple videos like every couple weeks kind of a deal. But at the very least, if you could continually watch this, you give them the views. I don't know if they are monetized or anything like that, but just support some indie devs, get the word out there. Once again, this is Zoe and the Cursed Dreamer. It's a cozy open world RPG, and it is by Game Endeavor. You can check out Game Endeavor once again over on YouTube, and they do have like a Twitter, a Discord that you could check out, and they also have a demo for the game.
Yep.
Since we like you said, I feel like we've almost done this somewhat of a disservice because we've talked about how weird of a case it is.
Yeah.
But it's also because this game, like the way that it was proposed in the trailer was so complicated, where they kind of walked you through all of the ways that they're building this, and it's like, I want to talk about that, but I also don't know how I would without it sounding like gibberish, kind of a deal, because I don't even understand it. I'm well, one, I'm dumb, but two, like, I follow video games and I don't understand it. So it's like, granted, we have definitely somewhat have done this a disservice, but check out the demo, check it out, check out the combat specifically, because that's the thing that's mostly like heavily showcased in this.
Yep.
Is just that idea of the combat mechanic of these enemies fighting each other, which is always cool. We've seen it in like Monster Hunter World most recently, where you'll come across like just these random ass monsters, like you're hunting one, but for some reason it's hunting something else and it just like attacks it. Like, that idea is very, very cool, and it makes the world feel more lived in. So if you have $15 or you think the idea is cool, head over. This is once again Zoe and the Cursed Dreamer. But it is time for us to hop in to our listener questions. Phil, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, writes in and says, what was the first thing that you know? Okay, so this one actually, taken out of context, that's actually really weird. Phil often writes in questions about us to get to know us or just weird shit. This week, Phil wrote in a question for our wives and asked, what was the first thing that you noticed about your husband that made you want to date him? I'm excited to talk about this one, and you'll find out why. So, Big Josh Boy, how did your wife answer?
I can't wait to hear what yours said. Mine is not going to be as exciting. She was just very cute about it. To the point where
she's not excited. She was just a butt about it.
She was just, yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how she was about. But mine was just very cute. And she was like, I have to tell you in person. Because I had just texted it to her, because I think it was like during the workday, and she wanted to tell me. She's very cute. But one of the things, before we talk about that, my favorite part about this is the way he addressed them as Mrs. Vaughn and Mrs. Josh. I love that. I don't know why. It's something very small, but it just seemed so funny.
Yeah.
But no, she said that, and I kind of agree with her, because when I met her, I was in a little bit of a rough patch, and I was a bit of an arrogant dick in general. And the first thing I ever said to her was, because I was very much like full of myself, and I remember coming to, we both worked at Haagen-Dazs. It was an ice cream shop. It was in a mall down here in Florida, and there were the mall is pretty big, and there are two Haagen-Dazs, one on one side and one on the other side. Same company, same people, but it's just you would have different people at different sides. And normally you would only have like a group of people work on one side, and they would never go back and forth unless something was like wrong. But then they ended up transferring me, because I was part of like the management team. And I remember coming over, and it was like the day before I was about to start on that new side. And some people, like a lot of people knew me, but others didn't. And I walked over and I said to my wife, who obviously was not my wife at the time, but I was like, a bunch of the girls there were like swooning over me, and they were like, "Oh, Josh, blah, blah, blah." And she was like kind of confused. She's like, "Who the fuck is this?" And I looked at her and I said, "Are you ready to fall in love with me like all the rest of them?" Legit, the first thing I fucking said to my now wife. which
Way
because
to tell the future, Big Josh.
I know, and it's the craziest thing. But the reason why I think we knew that, well, both of us, but the thing that she said, and I agree with her, is that we both and she said that she's like, other than that, you were obviously hot. She was like, the real reason is just because of the way we communicated, and it was the fact that we did right from the, like, you're stuck in there, right? You're just stuck in this little like fucking like Shark Tank of people flying around you and shit and serving ice cream, that you're bored, you just talked with one another, and we both helped each other out in rough patches of our life at the same time, just for stupid dumb shit. But like the way we had talked was just different, and we got on each other's like good sides. We both had really good conversations and just kind of connected. It was one of those things where, you know, it's hard to always explain like why you're with a certain person at sometimes, but like for us it just made sense.
Yeah. So mine is way less cute, honestly. So my wife gave me two answers. So she gave me an answer of like why she first started talking to me, I guess, like saw me as any sort of a romantic prospect in a sense, and then when like the thing that made her see that she wanted to date me, I guess. So the first thing she said was, and I quote, "You were a rebound," and
Ooh,
I'm not even joking.
Hot damn.
Yeah, she was like, "But don't make me seem like an asshole." And I was like, "You kind of just did it to yourself."
I mean,
you just like, she needed somebody new to text, is why she started texting me when, yeah, like almost 10 years ago. It was just like a rebound kind of a deal, which is super funny. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But then afterwards, she said like, the actual reason, like the first thing that she knew she wanted to date me was that she thought I was cute because I was so nervous about the dumbest things. And I say the dumbest things, it's not what she said, because she very much wanted me not to make her sound like an asshole.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like nervous to hold her hand, I guess. Like I was not, I don't know, I guess I am somewhat of an introvert, but also have like extrovert tendencies.
Yeah,
like I used to go out, I used to talk to people, but also I was like, let's be honest, I was like a lot of other people where I was like totally in love with somebody who did not give a shit that I existed. Yep. And like I didn't have a lot of like, I guess, experience in romance, no matter how much I lied about how much I did. So so like when it came to like actually doing things with a person, I was totally thrown off. So like our first like holding hands, our first kiss was super, it was very interesting because I was so nervous about it that I feel like the feelings were like so exaggerated at the same time. Like I don't know, it's all sorts of weird. But yeah, apparently the reason that, or the first thing that she knew she wanted to like actually date me instead of just text me for fun, for something to do, was that I was nervous to hold her hand, is what she said. Plus, like, I don't know, I was a little piece of shit. Like, I stole her candy. I did all sorts of dumb shit. Like, I used to throw paper balls at her and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
I was also just kind of a piece of shit.
Trying to make you just a rebound. Throw that shit right in her face.
And it's super weird. I mean, what's actually funny about it is Morgan and I started texting because I was texting her best friend, because I was like into her in high school, but also I had a thing for Morgan because we had a class together. But then like after her friend decided that she didn't want anything from me, Morgan asked her for my number, and then she started texting me.
Hilarious.
And yeah, like 10 years later, she was actually at our wedding and got super drunk to the point where she had to go home.
Oh, that was her. Oh, how nice.
That was her. Yeah, she got so drunk that she had to go home and couldn't give a speech at our wedding. And she was so afraid that she ruined it. And we were like, nope, you're good.
No, you're the worst person
I was like,
ever.
I sneezed blood on my fucking arm, bro. Like, you didn't do anything.
What an event. Weddings are always stressful.
I know. It's just such a deal. But
anyway, I can't wait for this answer that's coming up next, though.
Gotta love him to death. Okay, so Caesar, I believe it's Caesar.
Let us know.
I probably said it incorrectly altogether. It was actually a much longer name, but I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take this first part because it seems like a real name. And so they write in and says, like, I have a series of questions.
The fuck?
I have a series of questions. How does Vaughn know about Josh's dong size? Has he seen it? Did somebody talk about it? Give us some backstory on this dong gate. I think it's okay. There are a few things that I think are interesting that I've had this phenomenon happen where I've listened and been a fan of somebody but not actually understood what something came from. So like with Kind of Funny, it's like fuck that chicken or fuck that avocado. Literally had no fucking idea what that was, but I thought it was so funny for the longest time and wondered where it came from. Turns out it was like a weird newscaster reference where some dude said keep fucking that avocado, and it was super odd, and it's just become a thing. And I guess in our small community, we have a similar thing where I often talk about Big Josh Boy or the biggest of average, and people have asked before what exactly that means, and I'm like, he has the biggest penis for the average size Josh Boys. And what that stems from in reality is literally just me making a dick joke. Like me constantly making dick jokes about BDE, about big dick energy. Like, let's be real. Big Josh Boy, he's got the big dick energy. Like, we gotta be honest here, okay? Look at that. Look at that beautiful face. But that's what it comes from. Now, how do I know about Josh's dong size? Bro, we have talked about this in the past. That Josh didn't know that I lived in his attic and still do. So when he thinks he gets to have naked Thursdays, it's not alone, big boy. I'm like I'm peeping out like through the little cupboard window, like, hey, big Josh boy. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. I've soundproofed your attic so well, and like I've cloaked my signal like they do in the Fast and the Furious movies and shit. Like, you don't know where I am, but trust me, I know where you are, big Josh boy.
So good. And that's that. That's how he knows.
Yeah, that's how I know. It's because I've seen it. I love it's like, did somebody talk about it? It's like, honestly, it was just a joke gone awry, and now it's a thing.
It just keeps going.
Zach Durham writes in and says, are you guys horror fans at all? If not, what scared you so much and made you wuss out? I love that it's just like boilerplate, everyone's horror fans, unless you get too scared and then you're a bitch. So, if
Checks
so, what bit of horror media made you realize it was for you? For me, it was probably a combination of Resident Evil 4 and Nightmare on Elm Street, and then actually writes in again and says, actually, an American Werewolf in London might have been my first real horror movie that definitely got me into it. So, Big Josh Boy, are you a horror fan?
So I wouldn't like this. This is the interesting part, because I'm not like a wuss as in like I don't watch them because it's not that I'm scared of scary movies. I just don't particularly care for them. I really enjoy psychological horror games or movies or things like that. I like the idea of like, I don't really care about the like, a guy with a knife, he's gonna stab you. Like, I like more of the very slow burn, like methodical, just very like creepy things. Those I think probably my best example of something that really got me into that and like made me know that I like that was the Saw movies. So when I first thought of like Saw, and when it first came out, I was always like, this is such a dumb movie. It's just people dying. And I didn't know that there was like a full backstory to everything, that the character has this whole master plan, and that like there's so much that goes into it, that it's not just, you know, a kill the person in a weird way, although it is that way for a good amount of people. It's not
Halloween where he's just like constantly pursuing somebody.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, so I would say that you could definitely see that in things like, you know, my love for Omori as a more recent thing. Like I'm very much I love the concepts. Like, you know, BioShock as a game, it's not like I wouldn't put it a horror game, but I would say themes in it are very like horrifying as far as like a concept. Like I love that side of horror, of the more of the like the what if or the why is this happening. But I don't just watch scary movies to watch scary movies. It's usually just like, oh, this is a really interesting theme to it, and then I'll get into it.
Something I find weird is my wife is super into horror, but she won't let me watch Law and Order before she goes to bed because it'll give her nightmares. I don't understand that. Like, Shit like that does not get. Okay, here's the thing though. Am I a fan of horror? I've frequently talked about how I am a ball of fear and anxiety on this show, and you think I'm a horror fan? That I would subject myself to even more? No, I will not. And it's not like I'm scared of these horror movies. It's just I'm scared of the lingering effects of horror movies, because like I will watch something like It or something like that, and I will have no problem. I'll watch the whole thing. I'll be 100% fine. That was a good movie. And then I literally will not be able to sleep because I will get in my own head about it for days and be like, but what, like, I know it's not a clown, but what if somebody gets in my house right now? Like, what if they come after me? And it's just like, I'm so close to that so often that it's like, why would I subject myself to that? Yeah, and honestly, the thing that originally did it to me, I'm fairly certain, is the movie Signs, which is a little weird. I was so freaked out by the aliens in that movie. Like the whole like fingers under the door thing and he cuts them off, like that shit scared me. And then later on, like I'm a huge found footage fan and I love the like interstitial shots on like the newscast where they have like it just walking through like the birthday party, which is super funny because it's such a dumb thing. Yeah. That it's just like fucking somebody's having a birthday party and aliens like, hi. And there's like, kind of a deal. And I'm just, yeah, as a little kid, I was just like, what? Kind of a deal. I think it might have been that I was exposed to like hardcore horror movies too early on in my childhood, and then I just developed like serious anxiety about it.
Maybe,
but
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know because I used to, as a kid, I used to be really bad with horror movies, like the Chucky movies, like scared the shit out of me, and like now it doesn't. I'm just like whatever. But when I was a kid, there were a lot of movies where I was just like, oh, I don't know, too much for me.
Yeah, I don't get like often enough. I don't get legitimately scared by horror movies, but they make me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, and that's like the deal that I do not enjoy. Like my wife really likes Ari Aster's films. Specifically, she's really enjoyed Midsummer and she constantly wants to watch it, which is not necessarily like a horror movie, but it makes me feel so uncomfortable. And she's like, I want to watch it. I'm like, watch it by yourself. I already watched it with you the one time. I don't need to watch people get fucking like Judas spiked and shit. Like I don't need that. I don't need to watch people get their fucking their face smashed. Not my deal. Kind of a thing. Like it's. I mean, I don't want to watch Hereditary. There are the horror films that I want to watch a lot. That I hear like legitimately good movies. Like I want to watch The Witch. I think that looks really really cool. And I enjoyed Split, which isn't super scary, but I did enjoy the like what you would say is like the psychological horror aspect of it, like understanding that character of the beast. I thought was really cool. So there's like a bunch of horror movies that I would really like to get into, but also I know that I won't be able to sleep for days, and I don't want to do that.
The true struggle, baby.
Yeah, it's unnerving at the very least. And we get to end off on a nice note.
This is a good
by number one Turner and Hooch fan. I still don't know. Scrubs or the movie. I don't know. Whatever. Never get an answer.
Never.
The world may never know. Writes in and says, question for you. How fat does my big toe have to get before it becomes a serious problem to myself and those and the loved ones around me? So Big Josh Boy, how fat does that big toe have to get?
It's a good question. Now, I'm no medical professional, but I'd have to say if it's 4 times bigger than the average toe, then it becomes a problem.
Isn't it always like 4 times bigger than the average toe? Like a big toe is big.
Well, the average big toe.
Oh, I thought you just meant the average toe. No. I was like, it's literally like you're born and it's bigger than all your other toes. That's why it's called the big toe.
Wait, yours is? I think you might have a problem. 4 times bigger. Look, if you're asking the question, clearly your toe is too big and you need to go and get help. You have a problem, sir. I'm so sorry. Your toe is too big.
It's obviously started to bother
your loved ones
around you.
Get help.
Here's the deal, like, but if your loved ones are like into feet though,
that's gross,
and they like big toes, like, I don't think you got a problem, bro.
Just one big toe. I want a woman with just one big toe. You know,
Like not on the other
not
foot,
on the
just
other
the
foot,
one.
just that one.
So she has to wear like one clown shoe, but then the other one's fine.
Yeah.
And it turns out that she only like this much of the shoe on the right side, because this is her right foot. On the right side has no toe in it, but it's just like the left side of it is all toe. You know what I mean? Like, I guess in this is like she has an elongated, like it's a long toe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
not
about
a
like
big
a fat
toe. I
toe,
guess.
though? Like, what are we talking?
Yeah,
like
she
a,
would have
like
to
a
wear like
bulbous, like giant,
a big shoe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to just wear like a hat. You have to wear sandals, but have like a hat on just in case.
Yeah, it's kind of like the guy with like the what is it, like the 200-pound scrotum who has to wear sweatshirts as pants because he can't wear pants.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Same thing, same deal.
Yeah. I mean, at what point would a toe get so big that it would affect your loved ones, though? That's what I'm really trying to think of. Like, at what part, like are we talking about like, oh, I keep stepping on my child because I don't know where my toe is, and it just keeps hitting them? Like, what is the problem?
It's like
here?
a fucking anvil.
Yeah.
You just smashing your kid.
I keep losing children because I can't stop smashing them under my gigantic toe. Maybe.
It's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions here. Like, are your loved ones into feet? How big is this big toe? Like, we also need to know about that. I mean, is your big toe growing? Because after, like I got my adult feet, I would say, kind of like how you get adult teeth, you get like big boy teeth.
Yeah, your feet fall off for a year or so. You grow them back.
New feet. After you do that,
wouldn't that be fucking terrifying if our other body parts fell off like teeth do? If we just had like little baby versions of us that just like we're like, oh, his adult arms are growing in, and your arms just fell off, and you're like, oh, look at
that, sweet. Dude, the fact that like your fingernail can fall off freaks me out enough. I don't need like fucking my entire hand falling off, and then just like I have that like little Deadpool baby hand like grow out.
Yeah.
Until it becomes an adult arm. Yeah, no. So there's a lot of questions here, but at what point? I would say, I would follow Big Josh Boy when you start squishing people with it, and you don't know.
Yeah,
that's when it's just too big.
I like it.
But that is the end of this episode. Thanks everyone so much for listening. If you'd like to follow us or chat with us outside of the show, you can follow us at IndiePod on Twitter. I would very much recommend it because we have certain news stories and different stuff that are very urgent that you need to check out. Often enough, new deals and quick steals that would help you out, and we can't talk about them on the show, so be sure to follow us at IndiePod. You can follow me, Vaughn, at Hyde Legion. That's HYDELEGION. For all of my bullshit, I stream on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm playing some Neo right now. It's a lot of fun. I killed a big frog yesterday. And often enough, my streams are just showcasing how bad I am at video games and how I cheese my way around actually ever getting good at them, which is fun.
Why get good when you could cheese?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, dude.
Why get good when you could get good? Excuse me.
I don't think I have it in my body to actually become good at video games, but I know that I can figure out ways to cheese things. Like, I've been doing it all my life, okay? It's easier to cheese than it is to actually buckle down and get good. Mm-hmm. So, no.
Yeah, that Cheetos saying it ain't easy being cheesy. What a lie. Biggest lie. Biggest fucking lie.
Please check out the Big Josh Boy over on Twitter at _George90 and his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/the George, right?
The underscore
or
George.
the underscore George.
The underscore
yeah,
George.
yeah. And mine is twitch.tv/Hyde Legion. Same thing as my Twitter handle. Big Josh Boy, are you still streaming? You playing that Binding of Isaac?
Every so often, yeah. I keep playing Binding of Isaac. I still haven't picked a schedule because life is very hectic. Maybe once I finish up, and I don't know when that would be, like that contracting gig, maybe I'll start like really doing a scheduled thing. But for now it's kind of like I try to do at least like 1 or 2 days a week, and it's often more times than not usually like a Wednesday or Thursday. So maybe catch me then.
All right. So be sure to follow him, twitch.tv/the_George for notifications on when he goes live. Please, of course, gotta go through our housekeeping one more time. Check out our infamous Rabbit Odd Venture developer interview going live this Wednesday, one day after for patrons, 2 days before for plebes. Check out the IndiePod store for t-shirts and stickers, soon to be a bunch of new merch. Please check out our YouTube channel, which is just IndiePod over on YouTube for these videos, or these episodes on video, and possibly more stuff later down the road. Leave us reviews, specifically on iTunes, to help us reach a wider audience, and if you write one out, we will actually read them on the show. And lastly, thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons at the $3 or higher level. Once again, everybody, you give us a buck, you're amazing. But I am legally obligated from Patreon to, I guess I'm kind of like fiscally obligated, but whatever, to thank the people at the $3 tier or higher. So we've got John, because I don't have the permission to call him anything else. We'll see. Mix Mitosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Crenshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, Chris Penwell, always drinking tea, Josh Nichols, that there active Josh, and Sam Fillion from Canada. Thank you all so much for being patrons. You're all amazing, and anybody listening to this, you're amazing. I'll kiss you on the mouth one day when I won't get sick from doing it. Actually, you'll probably get sick. Like, I'm gross. I'm a dirty boy.
I don't know if I want to kiss you.
But you don't have a choice.
Oh man, when we start doing conferences and actually going places, I gotta be prepared. There's kissies coming.
Yeah, like it's gonna be you like sitting, like I don't know why, but we'll be doing like some sort of panel. It'll be you sitting there and being like, Vaughn just not show up or something, and then it'll be like a fucking camera following me as I slowly come out of a curtain. And I just like, you don't notice me, and I'm like,
have you ever
seen a kiss, and then just like bolt.
I know we're trying to end this, but have you ever seen that video where it's this huge buff dude that just doesn't have a shirt on and like really strong walk, like walks into a McDonald's and just goes to this guy who's about to take a bite of a burger and just kicks it out of his hand? It's like exactly what I thought of. You just like really angry force just walking in and just being like, Mwah!
Nah, I was thinking of being sneaky because I know you could beat me up. So I got to sneak a kiss. I'll fucking Spider-Man kiss you. I will like rappel from the ceiling and you won't expect it because nobody looks up. The fucking king of the jungle don't look up. And I'll just like kiss and then just like fucking disappear into the ether.
Gone forever.
I'll be like, yeah, I literally give you that kiss and then I'll be like, panel over, and just like disappear. So that's it for this episode. Thanks everyone so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
What a wild ride that was. All right, goodbye, folks.